Welcome to the Grit.org podcast with Colby Harris and Brian Harbin. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
I can! I will! I'm going to! Welcome back to the Grit.org podcast. My name is Colby Harris. Alongside me, as always, is Mr. Brian Harbin, and we're here with today's guest, Poe Pinson. Poe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Poe's a professional skateboarder, and at the age of 17, she is not your average teenager. She already has two 2021 bronze medals, one from X Games in San Diego and one from the Pan Am Games in Colombia. Poe has been skating since she was 4 years old and balances her schoolwork, skateboarding schedules, in masterful ways. She loves to interact with other professional athletes and does it with confidence and modesty. So Poe considers herself a scholar who loves challenges inside and out of the skate park. When she's not skateboarding around the world, Poe loves her island life in Fernandina Beach. So Poe, really appreciate you coming out today. We're super excited to have you on. We had Sean Pointer, another professional athlete from Fernandina, on a couple months ago. So really excited to just have you here telling your story. I grew up in Fernandina as well, so I can remember just the value and kind of being in that small, tightly knit town. So just back to the beginning of your story, tell us a bit about your home life in Fernandina and what are some of the positive and negatives that you had growing up in a small town?
Well, growing up in Fernandina, it's honestly kind of how you would expect it to be. Like, smaller towns, so everyone kind of knows everyone. And there are positives and negatives to that, you know, like if you don't like someone, then it's like, well, so you kind of have to like everyone. But I mean, I love everyone, so. But skating wise, I feel like it was a super good environment because it wasn't like LA or something where it's like everyone's just like super competitive about it. It's just like everyone's just kind of chilling, having fun and skating. So, but
a little bit more of that raw factor.
Yeah, just kind of like everyone together.
And so you got into skating at 4 years old, is that right? So tell us about how you got into skating and if there was any other early passions you had.
So basically, I don't even know how I got into skating. Like, my dad didn't skate. Like, I don't have any older siblings. So from what my dad has told me, I would just like be super like aware of skaters like longboarding down the street or something, and I'd be like, Dad, skateboarder, look, like, and then I just like kind of kept asking him for a skateboard, and then he finally got me one. It was either for like my birthday or Christmas or something. It was just like a little Walmart board, but took me to the skate park, and then for some reason I didn't try to go down the smallest ramp first. I like skipped to the middle ramp and just kept falling over and over again. I finally got it, but I don't know what the thought was behind that. But yeah, I don't know. Basically, I just kind of picked it up. And then before that, I played tennis a bit because my dad's super into tennis, but mostly just skating.
Starting to pick up some pickleball too, probably. Yeah. Biggest sport in Fernandina. And that makes me really think too, again, both of my older brothers are skaters. I know you know Chase and Joey. So to think about the skate scene in Fernandina, you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but as you know, it's not necessarily the number one thing people are talking about and the number one thing people are trying to grow. So what do you think is the importance of continuing to further the culture of skating in Fernandina and why people should really invest in trying to make sure that future skaters have that opportunity in Fernandina?
Honestly, skating in Fernandina, it's like half and half because you have like the older people who aren't so into it, but there's like a whole new generation of kids coming out that I've like never seen. Like, there'll be like a 9-year-old that I've never seen before who can like kickflip already, and I'm like, okay. And like, I feel like most of the population of like skaters in Fernandina now are like younger kids, and it's like they're all getting really good really fast. Like, they're better than I was at that age. Like, it's kind of crazy, but.
And I'm sure they really look up to you, and you set a great example for them being out there for sure. And so, all right, so it's one thing to like go to a skate park and be into skating, but it's another thing to like get into competition. So tell us about that decision to figure out that you were good enough to be in a competition, but then that decision and what that first competition was like.
So my first competition was actually at the Fernandina Park. I don't even know how old it was. It was when I kind of like first started skating. I couldn't really do many tricks or anything. And I don't know, I honestly didn't even want to do it, but my dad was kind of like, you should do it, see how you do. I honestly think I got like last place, but it was still fun. And then I don't know, after I just kind of like slowly started doing more like smaller contests, and I wouldn't really even think about it. I'd just kind of like do the contest and be like, oh, okay, like this is how I did, and just kind of slowly started getting better. So
yeah, you talked about kind of when you first got into it, immediately going to the bigger ramp, obviously a lot of slams, a lot of trial and error, getting back up, going forward a second time. So up to this point, what's kind of been, do you have a memory that stands out as like one of your hardest slams up to this point, or have you had any serious injuries during your career so far?
No like real super serious injuries yet, knock on wood, but I've definitely had like smaller injuries that have kind of like just been like pushed, like knee things, and then now I'm kind of dealing with a lot of ankle things. Like my right ankle has gone like, it's been like jammed this way, rolled this way, and like jammed back this way, all in the span of like 3 months, and it's just finally like getting stronger again. But I don't know, my most memorable slams are like the ones that aren't really on camera. Like I remember there's this one time, it was at the Fernandina Park. I was younger, but the half pipe ramp, I fell off the top of it and like landed on my chest and like just I don't know how it happened. I like stepped off of it and like landed on my chest, and that was horrible. And then also in Tampa in 2020, I tried to back 50 this like kink rail, and I was popping from this like roller thing, and it was the first one of the day. Like I was just kind of getting warmed up, and I just like clipped like the like end of the rail kind of, and then like flew onto my ribs on the kink, and that was kind of bad. I heard to breathe for a minute. But yeah, other than that, just like ankle rolls kind of. And
yeah, I know that one's really gnarly too when you slam on the kink, just like hitting anything, because as I said, both my brothers skate. I tried, and that's why I didn't stick with it. That's why I picked up surfing, because like you could fall 10 feet, hit the water, and like barely get shaken up, but you fall 3 feet onto concrete. It's not going to be as much fun. So clearly you stuck with it. You really continued to, you're here today. You're still doing a ton of these contests. I mean, it's really cool to see how far you've gone in it. And people are starting to recognize that. So you've grown quite a following on social media. You just got back from a 2-week trip to shoot a lot of footage, hang out with some other skaters, things like that. So tell us a little bit about, that process of kind of growing and presenting yourself on social media and eventually getting sponsors, and maybe like who some of your sponsors are now and who some of your first sponsors might have been.
So honestly, social media is probably the reason that I've like gotten recognized, basically, because I honestly didn't even think anything of it. I just like post my Instagram clips and stuff. And then so Lisa Whitaker, I still actually ride for a skateboard company, Meow Skateboards. She DM'd me on Instagram and was like, hey, like you've been killing it, how would you feel about like going to Do Tour, this and that. So I went to that first Do Tour in 2019, and then she like asked me if I wanted to ride for her skateboard company, and that was like my first like the first time that I was kind of just like, oh wow, like that's sick, like first time getting sent like a box of decks.
It's possible to have this happen.
Yeah, it was cool. But then my like first sponsor ever was Pipeline Surf Shop with like Rob Rye, and that was like, I was really stoked on that too. I actually asked him to be sponsored, which is like, that's the only time I've ever done that, because like everything else I'm just like, okay, I don't really like,
comes to you kind of.
Yeah, it's like if I deserve it, it'll happen. But that was the first time that I like kind of went and asked for it, and I mean it worked. But then Pipeline got shut down, and then I was like doing stuff with Driftwood for a bit, and then basically just like those two, and then this like, I don't even remember what it's called, but it was like a little clothing company from like San Diego or something. It was kind of weird, but
so
yeah.
Poe, tell us what What would you say, looking back, have been some of the keys to your progression? I mean, obviously time on the board, time at the skate park, but do you feel like you had any mentors, specific coaches? Did you watch a lot of videos? Like, what do you feel like helped you progress the quickest, the fastest?
I feel like I honestly recently just started like feeling progression, and the thing is I don't even really feel it in the moment, but like looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I think I've progressed the most I've like progressed ever in the past 2 years, and that's when I thought I wasn't progressing at all. But I've never had like a coach or anything, or like I've definitely had like mentors, kind of like just like the skate park and just like people in life, kind of. But I feel like what's like helped me progress the most is just kind of skating, and like not really thinking about progressing, but just kind of like, because I love skating, so it's just doing what I love, and then that kind of, I feel like, has gotten me further than actually being like, okay, I want to progress, I want to do this, I want to learn this,
So like when you're trying a new move, do you feel like you just stick with it until you figure it out, or do you try, and if it doesn't work, you're like, all right, well, let me come back to that later, or how do you figure out like what you want to work on next?
I'm definitely more of like, I'll try it for 20 minutes. If it's not working, I'll come back to it, and then usually it works. The only time I really sit there and like try to get a trick over and over again, either if I'm like just really hyper focused on it, or if I'm just like trying to film a clip in the streets. But other than that, usually I'll try it a few times, see if it works, and then just like I'll kind of just try it a few times, like spread out, and then usually I'll just like kind of sit there and like try it for a bit, and it works. But
yeah, it's awesome. I think it's definitely a consistent sport, something that you've got to just try and try again at. I mean, I remember there were days that people that I knew that skated, they'd come back so angry because they're like, I just spent 2 straight hours at the park trying to stick this one trick. So next question I really mentioned about, you've kind of got this perspective of you do it because you love it. Was there a time where you started to really kind of commit to really wanting to further it, although you're not super die hard about making sure that you just like get all the sponsors and you're on TV and this, that, and the other, but was there a time or like a memory that you have that just made you think, wow, like I want to be a part of skating and I want to do this for a long time?
Honestly, it was kind of when I was like watching a street league. I was like younger. I just kind of remember being like, one day I want to do that. Like, it's okay if it doesn't happen, but like that would be so cool to do something like that. And then I did my first street league in July, actually, which was pretty cool. I felt like my childhood self was very happy. But I feel like I still don't even have the mindset where it's like all like kind of like an all-in perspective. But at the same, I don't know, it just kind of like, it's always been a part of my life, so I feel like
something just draws you to it.
Yeah, it's like in my head I'm just like, I'm just gonna skate, like, so I mean, but doing contests, kind of like bigger contests, was like just like kind of laying in bed at night and kind of realizing like, oh wow, like I'm really like doing all this right now, like, because I'm just like not like insecure or anything, but just kind of like, oh well, like, whatever. But then actually thinking about it, I'm like, wow, like I'm actually doing all these contests with everyone that I've considered to be like some of the best skaters ever.
Kind of surreal. There's definitely a little part of you that wants that for yourself.
Yeah.
So tell us about, and kind of on that note, tell us about that first professional event, leading up to it, the nerves, how you overcame them. Tell us about that first pro event.
My first pro event was Dew Tour in 2019 in Long Beach. And it honestly didn't go super well for me, but it was kind of like it was a good experience for sure. I kind of like butchered my runs. I fell. I like hit my ribs on the rail mid-run, and I'm like, okay. But I didn't expect to be that nervous, but I was like really nervous. Like I felt like I was about to throw up afterwards and stuff. But it was just like, I like took pictures with everyone because it was just like my first time being in like a pro setting, and yeah, honestly I just was not prepared for it at all. Like it was kind of insane. I almost made it to the semifinals, but I got bumped out like
just by
like one spot, I think. I was an alternate, but I was so sore. Like, this was before I had started like working out and anything, so I was just not ready for it. But I mean, I feel like to like be ready for it, you kind of have to be not ready for it first.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. I mean, just like you said, to step out there and skating, for those of you who don't know, I mean, doing street, you usually get like a 2-minute time frame to just go out and do your thing, or correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty much the setup that you usually walk into.
Yes, that's like more of like a jam format where they have like 3 skaters and it's like, okay, just like 2 minutes.
Do your thing.
And then sometime, well, for like the Olympic format and like street league and stuff, it's usually like 2 45-second runs and then 4 or 5 best tricks. It's different for each one. But.
So what do you really try to do now? Like, what advice would you give to, if you could go back to that 2019 event, what advice would you give yourself to step on that stage in that time to really just go perform your best?
Honestly, I would probably just tell myself to just like not really focus on what everyone else was doing, but just to kind of like focus on what I wanted to do and just to stay on my board. Because like for runs, honestly, it's like as long as you stay on your board and you have like a pretty decent run, like where it's like kind of risky, so it kind of feels rewarding if you land your run. But yeah, honestly, to just focus on myself.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, just focus on, yourself and what you can control and what you're supposed to do. So, and then in 2022, you got to represent the USA national team. So tell us what that was like going from, going to these pro events as an individual, to now you're skating with an actual team. So tell us what that experience was like.
Honestly, it's not that different because like skateboarding is an individual sport. So like, at the end of the day, it's still kind of more individual. Mm-hmm. I definitely get like a lot more like help with certain things too, like
and camaraderie of it.
Yeah, USA skateboarding right now is honestly like going through a really weird thing. Like a bunch of people just stepped down. I'm not really sure why. Like no one really knows why. They can't talk about it or anything. But so there are just like a lot of changes being made, and which is kind of weird. I was supposed to go to Rio for a qualifier. It would have been in like a few weeks, but it got like World Skate pulled out of it and stuff, so I'm just not gonna go. But yeah, like typically it's kind of cool, just like, cause you're like, woo, Team USA, but at the same time, everyone's still just doing their own thing. Like we may go to dinner or something, but yeah, typically it's basically the same.
Yeah, it kind of leads right into my next question. So Nyjah Huston is one of the most notable professional skaters of all time. And he kind of heads up a lot of the stuff with the Team USA, as he's, again, probably one of the most notable guys in the sport. But what has it meant to you? Like you said, it's an individual sport, so you're kind of doing your thing, but to be in even just the same building as him and interact with him, I mean, what is that like for you, and what value do you think it's added to be around him and the rest of Team USA as you're trying to progress?
Honestly, it's just kind of weird, because it's like what, like it almost is kind of like, okay, why am I here? Like there's like Nyjah Huston and Deshaun Jordan and like all these like crazy people, and like we're just like signing posters together and like walking, like because like at the last we had this media day and there was just like a bunch of boards that like everyone had to sign and like a stack of posters like this thick, and it was just kind of weird because I'm like, hey, are you done with that Sharpie or something? Like he's like, oh yeah, go for it. But like other than that, it's like still just kind of awkward because I feel like I'm friends with like some of the other people like my age on Team USA for like skating and stuff, and I met a few of the gymnastics people, which is kind of weird. But yeah, it's still just kind of awkward just because it's like
kind of taking a bunch of the most talented people, putting them in the same place.
Yeah, and it's just like we're not all necessarily like friends, so it's just kind of small talk and like
tough to kind of gel in that situation.
Yeah.
Definitely know what that's like. I mean, even walking into any setting where you're supposed to know somebody and you're supposed to have common interests, this, that, and the other, and then it's just like, I don't really know you. I don't know anything about you necessarily.
Well, and then even going from being on the other side of it now, these were people that you looked up to, and you're the ones you were the ones looking for their autograph, but then now you're the ones that getting autograph to other people. So kind of being on that other side. But so, I mean, obviously you balance a lot right now between, school, skateboarding. I mean, tell us about kind of day in the life and how you balance everything that you're doing.
Honestly, it kind of took a while for me to like balance everything. Like, sophomore year of high school, I got like super behind in school. It was like super bad because I've been doing online school since freshman year. So I've just been like, it's just been easier to travel, like no pressure to really like be here. But I kind of took that a little too far. I was like, I don't know, in my head it didn't really register as like, okay, this is like actually like real school. I mean, now it does, but I got like super behind sophomore year because I started working at David's Restaurant and Lounge, like a little restaurant. I still work there, but it was just kind of like a little weird because I was in like 2020, 2021, and so like COVID was still happening, so there weren't contests. So it was just like, I was kind of just like goofing off and not really like considering like anything being real. And so it was definitely kind of hard getting adjusted. I was on like a really weird like sleep schedule. I would like procrastinate doing schoolwork until like 2 a.m. and then I wouldn't even do it, and then it'd be like the same thing the next day and I just wouldn't do school for like 2 weeks. But I like pushed that all the way to like the end of the summer. I kept getting extensions in 2021 because my dad kept telling me, he was like things are gonna start picking up, like you gotta get on top of this, and I'd be like, I got it, like it's cool, I got it. And then like before you know it, it's like May, it's like late April, and I'm still like in my last semesters of class, and then we're like, okay, nationals, like you're home for 3 days, do tour, you come back, you're home for like a week, you go to Rome, come back home for a week, you're like a VIP at Woodward, home for like maybe a week and a half, and X Games, and then it's like the end of July, and I'm like literally doing I'm at all these contests, and I'm just like in every free second doing school because I'm like so behind. And so I was just kind of like, that would have been so much easier if I had just done it on time. So the next year was like, ever since then I've just kind of been like more on top of it, and now I'm in like a better schedule. I wake up, kind of see how I'm feeling like school wise, and then if I'm not feeling it, I go skate. But if I'm feeling it, I'll do school and I'll skate. And then I work like 4 or 5 days a week when I'm here. So then I'll go to work, get off like 10, and then maybe try to do some more school, clean up a bit. And then, yeah, that's basically my day. But it sounds the same every day, but it's honestly different every day. I don't know. That's what's kind of cool with online school. It's like, kind of see where the day takes you.
Yeah, definitely understand. I just started doing online college at FSCJ recently, and it's kind of a bit of an adjustment. I can understand the tribulations that come with doing online school is not what people make it out to be. It's not as easy as everyone makes it seem. Like, you don't have the answer in front of you. Like, you got to email someone and call this person, call that person. So I can definitely understand that. So tell us, I really love the way that you've approached skating, because I think it's something that a lot of athletes lack is, they're diehard of, I want to be the best in the world. I want to be on the cover in the magazine. I want to be recognized everywhere I go, this, that, and the other. But you seem to take a little bit more of just the passion approach. Like, I love to skate. I'm a skater. That's who I am. So how would you define success in skating for yourself? Like, when you look back one day, are there any things that you do want to achieve, or is there any sensations that you want to reach? Like, how would you just describe success in skating long term?
Personally, success for me would be to have like different video parts like filmed in like different things. Like, not different things, different like places and stuff. But also, I don't know, I feel like for me, what would make me feel the most accomplished would just be to kind of like be well-rounded, like be doing contests, but like, and then like kind of just doing as best as I can in contests and like seeing kind of where that lands me. And then also like filming and like just doing different things like that, and just kind of like meeting people, like making connections. Just, I feel like success in skating, in my opinion, is just like doing what you want to do, you know? Like just having fun and traveling and like skating contests, skating street, like just kind of doing all that. Like maybe get a photo in a magazine or something. But
So what do you find to be your escape? You know, let's say you come off a tough tournament or an injury. Like, what do you feel like you do that helps you kind of refocus once you kind of need to take your mind off skating?
Honestly, I just really like talking to people. Like that's kind of something that helps. I'll talk to my dad and friends and just like kind of random people, honestly, sometimes too. Just like being like, okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't like the best thing ever. Like I just wasn't feeling it, you know, like. And my thing is too, like I went to Rome this summer, but I was just not feeling the vibes of that contest. I think I made it through like 2 rounds, but it was an Olympic contest. I got like, I don't know, I think I got like 27th or something, but I just was not feeling it. And so like kind of after that, I was like, oh, you know, whenever you don't do good, you're like a little discouraged, then you kind of just got to remember like, okay, this contest isn't everything. Like, and because like in skating, what's cool about it is you don't need to like win all the contests to actually go somewhere with it, you know? But yeah, honestly for me, just like kind of talking to people and just like I've also been meditating recently, which is like kind of new, but sometimes I just have like my brain just goes so fast, so I'm just like, okay, let's like try to slow down a bit. But yeah, just kind of getting back in the routine of like an everyday life and just being like, okay, like what's next, kind of like, yeah, that's done. But honestly, yeah, just I really like talking to people. Sometimes I play basketball. I just like to do different things.
Keep it interesting.
Yeah.
So when you say meditating, I know a lot of people, Brian actually got me into it, and I try to do it. I would be lying if I said I do it every day, but I do my best to try to take that quiet time. How would you, for someone who's never meditated before, like how have you been breaking into it, or like how do you like to meditate when you can?
Honestly, I just kind of like, I like sitting outside, and I'm just kind of like sitting there, and I just like really try to slow my breathing and like really try to feel my heart rate slow down. And then I just like, I don't even know if I'm meditating right, but I just kind of sit there and I'm like, okay, like just like kind of watching thoughts go by and not necessarily like dwelling on them. I'm like, okay, that's a thought. And then just like kind of in that state where you're like about to fall asleep, but you're not actually asleep. And then you just like kind of open your eyes a little bit and you're like, just kind of zen.
Yeah, I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I always describe meditating like putting your brain in a hammock, you know, where just your mind is constantly going. It's just nice to just let it sit and be. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask you too, because obviously in surfing, skateboarding, a lot of these extreme sports, you know, and you know, people talk about the state of flow, right, and just being in the zone. So tell us, like for you, when you are in a competition and, you know, you're in the middle of a great run, like tell us kind of what that feels like for you, like what's going through your mind in terms of just what that state feels like when you know you're just totally dialed in, and maybe what you do to kind of help put yourself in that state of mind going into it.
Usually at a contest, I just kind of like talk to everyone before, because I get nervous, and like sometimes when I'm nervous I just like to talk, but I'll like talk to everyone a little before, the people that like to talk. If they don't, of course I'm not gonna like mess them up, but usually like it's kind of like nerve-wracking. Like you hear your name get called, like you see that you're up next, and then you see like the other person's time slowly going down. You're like, okay, and like you kind of feel your heart like adrenaline flowing in, and then it's like gives you the thumbs up, and you're like, all right, and you like kind of just drop in. And then for me personally, I'm just like, I like kind of say the trick in my brain that I'm about to do. Like at the last street league, I was like, all right, shove 50-50. And then I'm like, and then the first day I didn't land in either of my runs, but I had like pretty good best tricks, so I was able to make it through. And I just like wasn't really focused. But like the second day I was like, all right, like I'm in this. And so you just kind of like, you really just got to stay focused and like kind of take it one thing at a time. Like if I'm like, okay, here I'm going to do shove 50-50 crook and then like kickflip in the bank, that's like your brain just going to like not really be focused on like the one thing. So like you just kind of have to slow everything down and be like, yes, like I'm being timed. So like you're aware of that. But like also it's like whenever you come up onto the bank, like take a second to like refocus. Like that's my thing. Like I'll do a trick, but then whenever I'm like not on my board in my run, I'm like, okay, like let's do it. And then you just kind of keep going. But yeah, one thing at a time. So it's like you land this, then it's like, okay, I've landed that, so like what's next? And then it's like get your brain to do that, and then it's like what's next? Where am I going? Because like I used to get like super lost in contests, like not really know where I was going. And so I feel like that's just kind of something that I like hyper focus on, is just like taking one thing at a time, make sure I like know where I'm going.
Yeah, I think that's perfect for any sport like skating or surfing or snowboarding. Really not even snowboarding, of kind of like where you have to design it in that time and place. You don't really have the time to sit in your room the night before and think all about like, okay, well this is, you know, you can kind of get a little bit of a plan, but if you happen to fall and you don't have that same transition to your next move, kind of got to deal with the cards you're dealt. But yeah, just another question I want to talk about. So you say you really like to talk to people. Which we even experienced today. It's the first time we've met, and immediately we're just kind of, you know, jabbing back and forth, having a good conversation before we sat down in the studio. But, you know, I know your dad is kind of a bit of a legend in Fernandina, you know, just hanging out, always at the skate park. I saw pictures of you guys together on that trip that you just went on. He's hanging out with everybody. I've never met him, but I've only heard great things about him. So I just want to ask, what has that meant to you to kind of have someone that you can really fall back on when you need to, or someone that you can talk to? You know, just what value has that added to your career of just kind of having a rock in your corner?
Yeah, honestly, it means a lot. Like without my dad, I definitely wouldn't be like at the place where I'm at. Like he's the reason why I was able to like go to all these contests and stuff. Like before I started getting like support with him and stuff. Like we've never had like a good amount of money. Like we've honestly like never really had any money at all, but like still somehow he always made it happen. So yeah, I really look up to him, honestly. He is my rock. Like so it's kind of just like it's like family life has been kind of hectic and stuff, but he's just like, it's just kind of cool to see, like, cuz like sometimes I look at him and I'm like what he's done with me is like how you should raise a child, like in my opinion, or like anything close to that. Like I'm like, wow, like if I have a kid, like I want to be like just how my dad was with me, like, which I honestly feel like is kind of rare, because a lot of people are like, if I have a kid, I don't want to be anything like my parents. But like, yeah, my dad, I don't know, sometimes I feel like he thinks I'm like, oh, whatever, dad, but like truly I really love him.
Yeah.
But
that's so cool. And do you think a big part of that is because, you know, he's letting you kind of chase your passion? Or like, what else do you think makes him so unique as a dad, and, you know, like you said, your rock?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's just like kind of supported me. Like he's just kind of like, he's like lived his life, and then he's just kind of taken that and then just kind of like saw that I really love skateboarding and was like, okay, like let's do that. Like it's like, hey dad, I think I want to try this. Okay, like let's do that. Like it's just kind of like, he kind of just goes off of like me, basically. He's like, hey, I'm about to go work out. Like, do you need this? Like, do you need me to leave the door unlocked? Like, hey, he just, I don't know, he's like really like kind of taken like being a parent into like a whole new level. Like he's not, and then he's also like kind of good with like, he's never been like, do the dishes, clean your room. He's never been like that, or like you have to be home like at this time. Like he's never been super strict. He's just kind of let me like learn things on my own, which is like, I feel like way more beneficial. So it's like I've gotten involved with the cops, but nothing serious. I was like 13, and then he was kind of just like, like if you keep doing that, like you're gonna see where it gets you, you know. So it's like, okay, like I don't even know, but like, yeah, he's just like kind of like let me do things on my own and just kind of like followed me and just like helped me with it. And like mentally too, it's really cool because like sometimes they'll like try to talk to me before a contest and I'm like, Dad, no, like I can't right now. And then I'm like, oh, well, I feel bad. I was just trying to help. And then I make sure I'm like, no, that's just me. Like that did not involve you. Like
just a little hostile preheat.
Yeah. Just like not feeling it right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that's just super powerful too. You know, a parent that's willing to sacrifice everything.
Yeah,
like I totally understand that. I mean, I've made more mistakes in my teenage years than most people might make in the first 20 years of their life. But I can really appreciate that because my mom's done the same thing. Even with, as you know, my brother's a photographer in New York City.
Yeah.
No parent is gonna, you know, push their son more often than not to move to New York City with no one, you know, to pursue a career that, you know, you're an artist, which is a very tough job.
Yeah.
So I've always just appreciated that, you know, actions speak louder than words. I think that's something I'm huge on. Like every family has those tribulations, but to know that you have that backing when you need it, it's always there. You know, just lucky to have some amazing parents for sure. So been a pleasure having you here today, Poe. I've loved everything about sharing your story. It's my first time getting to hear it really in depth, from your first contest to your first time picking up a skateboard and how you're furthering your career now. So my last question I have for you, we ask all of our guests this question. We have something called the Grit Creed, which is 12 principles we believe that everybody could really lead their life by. So as you familiarize yourself with it, what part of the Grit Creed resonates most with you and why?
Honestly, I'm really feeling the one that's like, I will accept the things I cannot change, have the courage to change the things I can, and seek the wisdom to know the difference. I feel like you can like take that in so many different ways, and it's just like sometimes, like more times than not in life, like things will happen and you're just kind of like you just kind of like get beat up about it. And then, but if you're just like, this is not like, I can't control this, like this is just happening, you just kind of have to like accept everything that's happening, especially when there's nothing you can do to change it. So you're just kind of like, okay, this is happening, yeah, like bummer, whatever, but you like, the world doesn't stop moving, like you gotta just keep moving. And then it's like, sometimes whenever there are things you can change, you just really have to like get out of like a negative cycle and just like be the change to like make yourself better and like make everyone else around you better at the same time. And then like seek the wisdom to know the difference. It's like you can like, okay, like if like there's a conflict in your life, like no matter what it is, it's like, okay, like is this just happening, or like is this happening and I could potentially like change it, you know?
Make a difference.
Yeah, just like, I don't know, just there's just a lot of ways that you could take it. That's just kind of the way I took it.
Yeah, well, I think that was a great one too, and I appreciate that and you sharing that, because I think there is just a ton of value in that line of not only are you going to be willing to change it if you can, but you know, having the wisdom to know right and wrong, essentially. Yeah. So that's been another great episode here at the Grit.org podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Please check out our other episodes. Leave us a comment. Tell us something you enjoyed about Poe's story. Share it with someone you think it would resonate with or impact. As always, we appreciate you tuning in for another episode of the Grit.org podcast.